Okay, here we go. We are on filmsgonewild.com. We're going to do a short segment here. My name is John Wildman, and we have two films. And so, since I've got multiple people, I'm going to let them introduce themselves. So, Lauren, why don't you introduce yourself and your film first?
Yeah, sure. I'm Lauren Noll, and I am the writer, director, and lead actor of Honor.
Okay, and who wants to take the honors? As I segue from that to you guys, who wants to introduce yourselves, but who wants to tell us about the film?
Me? Okay.
Yes.
I'm Alix Angelis, writer director of SÉANCE-ING. This is Vincent Cardinale, producer, and we also have Ayden Marchese, who is our lead actress.
There we go. Okay. All right. So, Alix, why don't you quickly introduce our audience to SÉANCE-ING? They have not seen it as yet, so tell them what SÉANCE-ING is about.
SÉANCE-ING is about three 13-year-old girls in the late 90s who are betrayed by their favorite boy band. And they have to gather together and have seance to process how this.
And it is devastated. It borders on the absolute tragic.
Yes.
And I'm very happy to talk about that. But first, on the way other side of the spectrum, Lauren, tell our audience about Honor.
Yeah, Honor is about a young girl who's a senior at Brigham Young University who is going through discovery of her sexuality, but also has a very deeply rooted identity in her faith. And she encounters the school's honor code system and stands to lose her work, her degree, in the face of getting caught for an encounter she had with a woman.
Right, right. So it really is on our spectrum timeline of stories. We couldn't have more divergent things here. I'm going to start off with seancing, and I was delighted by this because when I was much younger, a girlfriend I was dating at the time was an editor for Bop and the Big Bopper. So I was very familiar with the world of the teen magazines and how that was generated and what have you. So I found it. I immediately tied into it and found it hilarious. But what I want, Alix, for you to start off talking about is how, because in a short film you got a limited amount of time. And fortunately, you've got like about I think a 9-minute runtime, so you're right in that sweet spot. But talk about getting to the punchline, and getting your characters within that amount of time, because as filmmakers, we're tempted to just go on and on and on. So talk about that, and then we'll have Vincent chime in for how he, as a producer, tried to rein you in.
Okay. Well, I really wanted this to be like a moment in time, as well as a moment from these characters' lives. So it's very nostalgic, set in the late 90s. And I wanted to start right at the moment of crisis. And then you get to see how each of the friends reacts a little bit differently. You know, we have Jenna, who's surprised, that was Ayden's character, but like compassionate, and then we have Heather, who's really mad, and she's like, this is unjust, and Nikki, who's like feels sorry for them, and you don't really understand why they're so upset until the twist at the end. So you get to have like your imagination go wild and just see the emotional reaction of these girls.
Right. And Ayden also, when you, as an actor, and you're doing a short, again, you also, it's, listen, what first image of seeing you oftentimes is all we're going to have to go by as far as what your character is and what have you. So talk about the look. Obviously, these two are dressing you, and they're telling hair and makeup what to do. But as an actor, you're also, you're looking in the mirror and you're like going, okay, this looks okay or not, or what have you. So talk about your approach personally beyond what you were directed.
Okay, I loved my outfit. It was one of my favorite things that we had to do, like to put together. My outfit, like it described and explained my character in a way, like all the characters and their clothing was their personality, if that makes sense.
All right. Okay.
Look at that age, right? At that age, image is a big part of how you're presenting yourself to the world.
Well, exactly. It's like, everything from eyeshadow to hair color to every single thing at that age. We are so hyper specific and obviously, because the story of the thing, anything can be a crisis at any moment, right? All right. So now let's go into a real crisis, and let's go into that. Lauren, also, we know oftentimes with the short, we are, and I'm getting serenaded here by somebody. So we'll have a soundtrack here. But you have to gut us as an audience. What I think you're hoping to do is just really nail us to the wall with the crisis that your character is in the middle of this immediately, because again, you don't have an hour and a half to take us through a journey. You've got literally minutes to do that. And you're also being economical within your setting. We're talking about like what, 3 locations, 1 exterior and 2 interiors, pretty much, right? So talk about that. Talk about the architecture to write that and then direct to execute it to tell that.
Yeah, well, of course, I mean, there were versions of the script with more locations, and at the end of it, fortunately, I think it served the story well, but it was also a matter of just being able to make the film like as economically as possible. What could I do to contain the story? For me, at the end of the day, there was a version, and I had been getting some feedback to go for the feature version of this, where we go into the introduction into the relationship, how this all started to begin with, and more with the roommate and their friendship and their relationship and this whole thing. But at the end, we just decided I don't even think we need that to tell the story. There doesn't need to be the feature film version of this. We can do it in the 15 minutes, because you can get all the information you need within the course of the interview. And so at the end of the day, I think we were fortunate enough to come to the realization that it actually served the story better to keep it compact and to stick inside the interview for the main scene, and to learn anything else we needed through visuals or quick moments of flashback as Lane kind of remembers the other version of the story as she's forced to share.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And the other thing I would love for you to talk about is affecting nuance, because we have a villain in the film, but you also have to be careful, because because if you tip your hand and you go too far with it, well then you can just it can suck. Frankly, it can if you do that wrong. So talk about one in the shooting process, and especially because as an actor director, it's like you're not behind the camera, you're not in a little video village, and I doubt they even had a video village for this film, right? And so you're actually the camera is on you, and you're working with opposite your other actor, and then also in the editing, because there are things in the editing like just literally shaving off a half a second here and there can make all the difference between how we perceive that person and that interplay. So talk about the challenges of that.
I mean, it was the great challenge of the film. This is my dog Pepe, who's joining us. Yeah, the biggest thing for me is I grew up in this world. I did grow up LDS. I went to BYU myself, so I understand the character that we're labeling here as the villain. I understand her, I guess, and I wasn't her ever, but I did once adopt those beliefs, you know what I mean, in my life. And so for me, it was really because I knew, especially to people outside of this world, that she would be a villain, and that's what would be understood. But at the same time, it was very important to me that she came from a position of compassion and wanting to help, and earnestly believing that she's doing the right thing, and that this can save this girl and the future of her life. So I mean, it was just conversations with the actor, and many drafts of really trying to come down to what actually needs to be said out loud. A lot of the things that we used are from real life. I mean, not from my real life, but from other people's stories, things that the way they were questioned in the honor code. I really just tried to tell as authentic of a story as I could, based on people's experiences at this university. And I guess at the end of the day, I have to leave it in the hands of the audience, you know what I mean, to determine for themselves. I mean, you're right about the editing. We spent a lot of time trying to really super carefully craft the moments and the cuts, and I hope we landed on something that is impactful for people. But I know what you mean. It can go very wrong.
No, absolutely. And like I said, I mean, I think, you know, there are a number of films that you know, short or feature wise, you know, that address situations like this, and and we've seen, the overwrought Lifetime channel versions of it, and and then we see what I think you've achieved here, which is, like I said, to really twist the knife, in us as we're watching, on behalf of your character, and yet, let us hang on and not give us that easy, like I said, villain, twisting the handlebar mustache routine. All right, so let's go back to seancing, and let's talk about the period aspect. That that when you're trying to do a period thing again, and this is one thing where there is a connection, where you can be ham-handed and obvious with the period aspect, or you can be very specific. And so let's talk to our Alix and Vincent, both on the directing side and the producing side, with the production design, to get this right. And yet, I'm assuming you guys don't have a shit ton of money to pull this stuff off. So talk about how you did that.
I mean, that was all Alix. She did the production design as well as the directing, which was amazing. So she decorated that whole room, which I think was fun for you.
Yeah. To recreate my childhood.
And a lot of those pictures of the people on the wall, I mean, we actually had to make a magazine, first of all, but they're actually her friends at that age when she was 13, little Easter egg pictures of them throughout the room.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna put that
Well, what I really wanted to do, like you said, I didn't want to ham-hand it. I've never heard that. But so we didn't do cultural references specifically. Like the band is a fake band, but you kind of get the sense. Maybe it's inspired by a certain band. And so that we could, so it's not too niche, like it's not too specific, but it's like just that feeling. And yeah, we just called up our friends and we're like, we know you have stuff from the 90s. Bring it on over. So,
one of our friends came over with a suitcase full of old things. It was perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, listen, we're gonna wrap this up, and again, we've been talking to Lauren Noll. She's the director, writer, and star of Honor. We've been talking to Alix and Vincent, the director and writer and producer, and Ayden, one of the stars of SÉANCE-ING, both short films, screening at the San Luis Obispo International Film Festival. It's been wonderful to have you guys on. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.